This is Nate's notes, and Nate is going to note the different things of what I will explain. But I have certain stats from last night's game. I had to look into certain things because I was going analytical on this game. Like I was pulling stats out my butthole. I was pulling stats out of just the from like
Pause.
2007. I was pulling stats out.
Pause.
Sorry, Nate. Sorry.
So Diddy. No Diddy.
No, did he?
No Diddy.
But yes, last night, Florida State, being top 10 in the country, lost yet another matchup to a unranked team, and it was Boston College. Now, they didn't lose by 3 points this time. Boston College, they weren't supposed to lose as bad to Boston College. 28-13. Try that, Nate. 28-13. They lost last week, and it was bad. Like I was looking at DJ. And I mean, I don't like to say anything about people's performances because obviously they're doing better than me on the football field. I'm going to say that right now. But DJ, I'm very, very happy he got benched at Clemson and is not the starter because of what I saw last night. It didn't look good. Now, Rob, we're going to talk about Clemson in a little bit, so hold your horses. But just a couple facts I want to tell you, Nate. Florida State is actually the fourth team since the polling began to start the season
0-2 when they were
top 10
when they were
team.
top 10 team. Yeah.
Now, do you know what the other three teams are? I'm going to tell you if you don't know.
Because one of them is SEC.
Two of them are real recent. No, none of them are SEC. Wait,
Are you sure?
Yeah, none of them are SEC.
Oh, are you sure?
So in 2022,
Sure.
Notre Dame entered the season at number 5, went in to play Ohio State week 1.
Yeah,
Ohio
lost.
State was ranked number 2. They lost 21-10. And then the next week, I remember this game like it was yesterday, they played unranked Marshall and lost 26-21.
Yeah.
So that was in 2022. Now in 2020, Penn State entered the season number 8. Now this was the COVID year, so of course you only played conference people, and usually Penn State does really good in the Big Ten when it comes to conference opponents, but not this year. In 2022, they were the second team since polling began. They were against Indiana, lost in overtime 36-35, and then the next week lost against who? Ohio State, the number 3 ranked team in the country, 38-25. So that's the second team. Nate, do you know who the first team is to start the season 0-2 as a top 10 team?
Give me confidence.
Big Ten. Of course it's Big Ten. SEC's better.
Michigan.
You got it. In 2007, remember what happened? They lost week 1 to App State, 34-32. Do you know what the next week was?
I remember the next week.
Now they entered.
That was the biggest upset. That was like quote unquote the biggest upset
ever.
Yeah.
They entered the season number 5, lost 34-32 against Appalachian State. The next week they got blown out 39-7 by Oregon, unranked Oregon. They got blown out.
No.
They weren't ranked. They weren't ranked that game. They became ranked, yes,
okay,
but they weren't ranked that game. So Florida State's just a 4th team in the past 20, 25 years to start a season 0-2 as a top 10 team.
Yeah.
And DJ played bad. And that Michigan team and Florida State are the only 2 teams to fall out of the top 25 the next week after losing in week 1. They're the only 2 teams ever to go all the way out of the rankings, to drop off, because one of them lost to App State and one of them lost 2 unranked matches.
Now let me ask you this question: where did they drop after they lost to Tech?
Florida State. So
Yes,
they didn't drop at all because the selection committee and the AP polls, they don't update until after week 1. So Florida State played week 0. So technically they weren't ranked 10 going into Boston College, but they don't update the rankings after week 0. They wait until after week 1.
gotcha,
So
gotcha,
because of that, Florida State was technically number 10 going into Boston College, and
gotcha,
Boston College only has 5 wins before that game against top 10 opponents on the road.
gotcha.
And they went ahead and beat Florida State. And DJ played bad. And yes, Rob, week 0 doesn't count. DJ, I don't know what's up with Uwe Agalale, but I just like saying his name, so I gotta kind of flex that I can pronounce his name. DJ played bad. I was in the dorm today, going back and forth. My mama was up here, and I was showing her the game on my phone. Yes, my mom was up here. Shout out to Mama D. And I was just looking at him, and Nate, he cannot. I wish I pulled film. But I couldn't find any film for DJ. He cannot throw. He just can't throw to open receivers. I don't understand if it's his footing. If I mean, he played good at Oregon
Mechanics,
State. I don't understand.
mechanics plays a big part. Mechanics plays a big part. I mean, uh, I'm just speaking from the standpoint of a defensive back because mechanics and positioning uh, plays a big part in just anything that it is that you do. But his mechanics are kind of off, you know, you know, and just his knowledge of the game and so forth, uh, throwing into open guys and just going through his progressions and whatnot. I don't know if he's not seeing it because when you play any competitive sport at a high level, you have to be able to see the play happen before the play actually happens. You got to be able to see the defense that you're going to go against before the play actually happens. So if they're showing a 2 shell, you got to see that safety getting ready to come down strong or weak. You got to be able to process that mentally, beforehand. Um, and I don't know if he's able to do so.
Well, let me pull this comment up because I was talking to this with my buddy yesterday. Do you know who the Boston coach head, or who the Boston College head coach is?
No,
Bill O'Brien.
like
Now,
Billy O, Billy O, Billy O from
yes, who has probably and I was talking to my buddy. He was like, in hindsight, it isn't. He probably has one of the worst trades in NFL history.
no, he has the
Trading,
worst trade.
yeah,
He has the worst trade.
yeah, yeah. It's probably the worst trade. My buddy was like, in
That's what got him
hindsight,
fired.
it's
That's
probably
what got him
not.
fired.
Yeah, it did. Of course, it did. It was terrible. You traded dude coming off an All-Pro season for a washed back and a 4th-round pick, whatever the trade was.
I think it was a
But
second round. It was a second round pick. It was a second, but
was it
you
that
could have,
high?
yeah, you could have. It was a second round pick, but for D Hop, you could have got at least a first and a third for D Hop at that time. He was
They
still in
should
his
have got
prime.
it first because they got a 31-year-old running back out of it.
He was still in his prime.
So Bill O'Brien was there, and it was interesting because I was listening to Lewis Reddick. He was doing the game, and then he talked afterwards, and it was like, how can Bill O'Brien come from such a horrendous head coaching? And it wasn't even that horrendous because didn't Bill O'Brien make the AFC Championship with the Texans? Was he the head coach when they made the AFC Championship?
He made the playoffs. He made the playoffs like every year.
Yeah, so it wasn't a terrible tenure.
No, but he kept running. To be honest with you, he kept running into New England. That was the only problem. And a lot of teams, Indianapolis, Andrew Luck and the Colts when he was playing. Excuse me, the Houston Texans. These teams, San Diego Chargers, before they moved to LA, all these teams ran into the Patriots.
Well, this is my issue with the Florida State game last night. You're coming off a season where you had Jordan Travis, Trey Benson in your offense, and then you had that Jared Verse leadership on the line. You now have none of that. Okay? You look at an offense that Mike Norvell now calls, the head coach of Florida State. He's play calling on their offense plays that he would have Jordan Travis and Trey Benson playing.
Yeah.
You don't have that at Florida State anymore. You can't call plays that you would expect Jordan Travis to run when you have DJ Uiagalelei as your starting quarterback, because
Got point.
they're trying to put, and my dad says this the best. He always uses this analogy. They're trying to put a square peg in a round hole, and it just doesn't work. Mike Norvell's play calling with DJ is awful. With the combination of DJ not being able to read a defense, he does not throw an accurate ball, and when he does throw an accurate ball, his receivers don't catch it. DJ went 21 for 42. He threw dead in the middle, 50% for his passes for 272 yards, a tutty, and an interception. Now, they had to settle for a field goal 2 times in the red zone while it was like they were on the 6-yard line. They had to settle for 2 field goals because they just couldn't get it in the end zone. DJ threw the ball 3 times while it was like first and goal, second and goal, third and goal, and one of them was overthrown. The receiver didn't catch the other one. I mean, I understand DJ needs to make those passes, but at the same time, you having receivers that don't catch the ball is also a problem. Hey, Cy. I mean, Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, they're not there anymore.
No,
Why
they're
are
not.
you calling plays with an offense you had last year? Call
Yeah, you
plays with the players you have now.
not
You
knowing your
can't win
personnel.
a football game like that.
No, not knowing your personnel. You gotta know your personnel. You gotta know what your team's strengths are, the individual players, their strengths and weaknesses are. You gotta know what the opponents that you're going against. You gotta know what they succeed at and what they struggle with. You gotta expose that.
And it was so beautiful because the Boston College's starting quarterback is Thomas Castanella. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Castellanos, yeah, whatever. He's dual threat, baby, but he only threw 16 passes. And
He
they
didn't
had
have
28 points on the
touch.
board. That's all they had to throw, because that's what the play calling was. Mike Norvell's play calling is for Jordan Travis. That's why DJ threw it 42 times, only completed 50% of them. I mean, I looked at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? You don't go to the NFL and have Matt LaFleur still calling Aaron Rodgers type offensive plays when Aaron Rodgers is in New York. You don't have that. But Mike Norvell seems to be calling plays that Jordan Travis, who coincidentally is on the Jets now, would be sitting there in the pocket playing. Trey Benson would be in the backfield. Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson would be on the line. You can't do that. Jared Verse would be on the defensive line. That defense could not stop a run to save their life. Boston College, who had like a 20% chance to win that game, put over 200 rushing yards on Florida State. 200. And then Florida State, Georgia Tech, put 189 on them the week before. That line cannot stop a run. And I don't know if it's the defensive play calling or what. If the defense can't see a run and stop a run, I mean, you don't have Jared Verse anymore. I feel like Florida State's play calling is they're doing stuff for personnel they don't have anymore. They're player personnel. And
Yeah,
it as a watcher, as a viewer, it drives me nuts.
you know, this right now, them being 0-2, and the season's not over because there's about 10 more games left. There's a lot of football that has to be played. I think what they have to do though is they have to get back to ground zero. They have to start over and from scratch and get back to the basics and the fundamentals of football. And that's on the coaches, but that's on the players as well. But it's on more so on the coaches. Simplify things, build guys' confidence back up, put them in position to make plays, and just again, they have to do some evaluation of self before they do anything. Um, Florida State is giving up 6.5 yards a pop per rush. If I'm not mistaken, it might be more, it might be 7, but you're not going to win no football games like that. I mean, if you're allowing a team to rush for 200 plus, they're averaging over 150 yards a game on you. That's that's not winning football, you know, especially if you're a team that quote unquote started or as high as the number 10 team in the nation at the beginning of the year. You're a team that made all of this fuss last year, if I'm not mistaken, about not making it to the national championship, or excuse me, making it to the college football playoff, and you come out in the bowl game, you get drummed by Georgia. Now you start the year off on like a hangover. That's not something that's acceptable, especially if a team that is talking that they deserve to be in the upper echelon of teams with the likes of the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Texas, the Michigans, and the Ohio States of the world. But you lay two eggs. I don't, and yeah, looking at their schedule, they'll be lucky really to crack 500. Can they do it? Yes, but it's going to take them to do a massive reset. Just get back to the basics of the game. Get back to the basics of coaching and fundamentals of coaching and putting your players in the right position.
But it's not like you were playing a team you hadn't seen before. You played a team that was 10th in the ACC last year, had 3
Oh,
conference. What, Nate?
Boston College was that low?
10th in the ACC.
Really?
You played this team last year and barely beat them too. This is why Florida State did not make the playoffs, because of their strength of schedule and how well they fought those. They beat Boston College by 2 points. You struggled with them last year. You're gonna struggle with them this year. They went into that game puffing out their chest. We got an 80% chance to win this game. We're Florida State. And they played a team that had 3 conference wins. 3 conference wins, was 10th in the conference, and got drummed by them. I don't care what you say. 2-possession game when you are obviously the top dog in this scenario, that's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. I called them frauds. I called them frauds last year. Florida State fans wanted to get mad at me, but I told them what was going to happen this year. And this is exactly what's happened. Everything is going into fruition. Now their season is probably over. Do you know the percentage that they have to make the playoffs now, Nate?
It's not. It's under. It should be under 1%.
It is under 1%. 1%. And that is if they win every single game.
But it dropped. It dropped worse. The first game when they lost to Georgia Tech, it dropped. It dropped
to like 33%.
Like
it was like 33%.
It
was in the 30s. I know that.
Okay,
I think it was in the 30s. I'm pretty sure.
Now, this right here should knock them out of contention already. I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer, but I don't know if the ACC is going to be represented in the college football playoff, to be honest with you. Well, let me take that back.
They have to be. Just at least one.
The U did pretty well. But it's still, again, I'm going to go back and backtrack my words. There's a lot of football left. You never know. But there's a lot of football left.
There is. And, of course, with my bias, my mom's in the comments, probably she's watching. Clemson was my pick to win the ACC. If you looked at my college football bracket, it should be C or something. It's right here. Clemson was my pick to win the ACC. I don't know where it is, but it should be somewhere up there. They're my pick. And the only game I had them losing was this first game. And it scared me to see how bad they played against Georgia, because that offense looked terrible. And now we're going, okay, well, the U's going to win. And although they went into the swamp and played Florida, everyone thought Florida was going to be good. With me, they don't have a running game. Their running game was gone when Trevor Etienne transferred to Georgia. Their running game's gone. They have no offense. We saw it against Miami. They have no offense. Their defense is barely there. They have the hardest schedule in college football, and people were saying Florida's going to be a contender. Florida's going to be this. Florida's going to be that. Heck no. You have all the variables against you, and you're still going to bet the unlikely possibility of you being a good team? Like it's like you have a study guide. You have a cheat sheet right in front of you, and you still put the wrong answer on there. It's not that difficult. There's people that get paid to analyze college football, and they're still you need to put your money somewhere else, because some of these analysts, they don't know what they're analyzing. They couldn't analyze freaking Florida from Florida State. And that's not hard to analyze. You're going to sit here and have a cheat sheet in front of you and still pick Florida? Really? Still pick Florida State? Really? After what they played against Georgia Tech? Florida, it's not looking good for you in football right now. It's not looking good for you. And yes, I picked I picked Clemson to win the ACC. You're right, because Florida State wasn't an option for me, and I believe the next best option was Clemson. And Clemson, so far, have done what I have said. They lose the first game. Okay. We'll see how they play against NC State. If they play bad against NC State, it's probably over for Clemson. But until we see that, and yes, Napier, whatever his last name is, Napier, I think it's I don't think it's A. Yeah, he's done. He's done.
Napier.
Yeah, he's done. He's done.